Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. I'm your host, Mo, and today we have a special guest with us, Barbara Boselli. She's an executive coach, leadership consultant, and founder of BNow Consulting. Barbara has a rich background in guiding individuals and organizations to lead with authenticity, clarity, and purpose. Today, we'll dive into her story, her leadership philosophy, and how we can all show up more powerfully in our roles. Barbara, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Mo.
Barbara, let's start with your story. You've had a fascinating journey from Brazil to founding BNow Consulting. What were some of the pivotal moments that led you to where you are today? Take us through the journey.
Sure. So yeah, I was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I lived there until I was in my 30s. I studied business at undergrad and just followed what in my mind was a very traditional career because my father was in business and went to work for a really big corporation in Brazil. And eventually I decided to come to the US to get an MBA. I went to the Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern University, and I used that MBA to transition roles and industries. So after that, I went to work for Google and worked on strategy and operations. And I loved my time at Google. And at the same time, the more I was kind of climbing the leadership, ladder or the corporate ladder, I got really interested in leadership and human behavior. I loved to work with my team on career development. I was a career guru. It's kind of a side job that I had at Google. And I really always loved to invest in my own personal development as well. And at some point at Google, I took a training called Search Inside Yourself. This training was developed internally, and it was a leadership training where they covered emotional intelligence skills founded in mindfulness as like a key ingredient to develop self-awareness, which is kind of the first foundational step of emotional intelligence. And also all backed by neuroscience. You can imagine for Google engineers, they need the science behind whatever they're learning. And I remember taking that training and looking at the facilitator and thinking in my head, in my next life, I would love to have that job because it was so far off for me at that point. It was totally different than what I had been doing up until that point. So I just kind of learned a lot. It was a big aha for me to learn that all the leadership skills that I admired in so many leaders could be learned and taught, because up until that point, I kind of thought that you were a natural born leader or you weren't. Long story short, eventually I decided to leave Google, which was a big decision. We can talk about that if you want, because it's not easy to leave like a corporate job, a title, a salary. And I did that. And at the time I had really young kids. So it was the perfect excuse to the external world. Like, I'm going to leave corporate to be with my kids. But I knew internally that I was ready for a change. And so I went in a kind of a search for what I was going to do next. I did a lot of personal development stuff. And as I was navigating this kind of very overwhelming time of kind of redefining my career, I learned that training, Search Inside Yourself, had now spun off from Google, became its own leadership training, and they were training teachers. They were doing teacher training, and I jumped on that boat, became certified to teach that class, and then opened my company, BNow Consulting, started bringing Search Inside Yourself to different organizations. And then over time, I started developing my own trainings based on all the different skills and concepts and trainings that I've, gathered through my years. And then evolved to coaching as well, because as I was, providing this training, people would come to me and ask, how can I continue working with you? How can I go deeper on this topic? So it was just kind of a natural evolution to become a coach as well. So I went and got my certifications, and today that's what I do. I offer different types of leadership training and coaching, and I absolutely love what I do. I love to serve people, to support people in becoming their best self and just kind of, sharing my experiences.
You talk a lot about presence, authenticity, transformation. Tell us more about the heart behind BNow Consulting. What inspired you to start it, and what does BNow mean to you?
In my experience in corporate, sometimes we tend to leave our human side outside of the corporate. And there's a lot of thinking that, we are better professionals if we don't bring our humanity, if we're just like really, practical and technical. And what I learned throughout my life is that it's actually the opposite, right? We are humans. And when we bring our humanity, we bring our authenticity, we connect with people, we have a lot more impact. And when I was in that period where I left my corporate job and I was trying to figure out what was next for me, I joined a training in spiritual psychology at the University of Santa Monica. And this training, when I did it, it was really for my own personal development, but I was learning skills about listening to people, right? Most of us really don't listen when we're in conversation. We're just listening to respond. We're listening to resolve the problem. We're listening to hijack the conversation, but we're not really listening to people. And when we don't listen, we miss out on so much information, right? We have miscommunication. We don't connect with other people. So this is one skill that I was learning. I also was learning about how we can relate to the world in a way that is so much more empowering than what most of us are usually doing. Like we all, not all, but many of us have a tendency to blame others for our experiences in the world, right? We blame the rain because we wanted to go to the beach and now we can't, right? We blame traffic because we are late to a meeting. And of course, traffic is there, the rain is there, but it puts us in a place of victim when we are blaming everything around us, like we don't have the power to take ownership of our life. And what I was learning in that training is that you can take any situation and blame others, or you can take ownership and look at, okay, it is raining and I wanted to go to the beach. What can I do now? Like, how can I take this and create something better for me? There is traffic. I'm late for work. Okay, what can I do? I can leave the house earlier because I know that there's going to be traffic, right? So we can always own situations. So these kinds of things that I was learning, it hit me that it's exactly what people in corporate need, because we all need these skills in order to relate to each other in a better way, to relate with ourselves in a better way, and not only become better, more like happier human beings, but more productive at work, more connected, better leaders, right? So that's where it all came from. And the name Be Now, I've been practicing mindfulness for a long time. And I believe that being in this moment, being present with what's happening with us right now, is one of the key responses to dealing with a lot of the hurdles that we see in the world, right? When we are present, we listen better. We look at the situation for what it is, as opposed to looking at a situation based on all of our and stories and, you know, preconceptions about the world. And so it really puts us in a place of that we're better equipped to deal with whatever is happening to us.
Barbara, what kind of leaders come to you for coaching, and what are they usually looking for?
I coach a lot of different people, to be honest. And when I started my career as a coach, I was thinking if I wanted to focus on a niche. And I quickly realized that I didn't. And that's because it didn't matter if I'm working with like a CEO that's trying to become a better leader of, or I'm working with a mom that's trying to become a better mom. We are all human beings, and what's behind the barriers that we face to achieve our goals are very similar. So I see myself often talking to a CEO that wants to become a better leader about their relationship with their father that might be getting in the way because they learn to be a people pleaser, for example, right? As they're growing up. And that's similar to a mom. So to answer your question, I work with executives. That's who I mostly work with just because of my background. And so people in leadership roles that are leading other people and that are navigating the corporate world. And I also work with people just like you and I that are trying to navigate life in general and find more fulfillment. I work with a lot of people also that are like transitioning careers because again, I went through that. So I can really relate and understand where they're coming from. But really, if people are people, that's how I see it.
One of the themes that stands out in your work is authentic leadership. Why do you think that's so important in our culture and the organizational climate?
So leaders, I mean, I'm sure you've talked about this before in your podcast. There's a difference between being a leader and being a manager or having a title, right? And I believe that for you to be a leader who is someone that people follow, right? Who is someone that people listen to. If you're not authentic, people grasp it, right? People see that you're not following through what you're saying, right? You're not walking the talk. And then you lose credibility immediately. So I don't think that there's really a long-term road for people that lead without authenticity. And I also connect authenticity with compassion in a way, right? Because if we are authentic, that means that we are comfortable being ourselves and we are being vulnerable in a way. We are putting ourselves out there, and I'm not suggesting that people are going to be disclosing a bunch of information they're not comfortable with. It's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is recognizing that we are all human beings, that we all have our difficulties, and being leading by example, right? And I believe that when you are authentic, again, you have this ability to be compassionate with others, to understand where they're coming from, because you're accepting yourself. So you can also accept others. When we lead from like an armor, right? Where we are trying to hide who we are. That means, in my view, that we're hiding something. We are not comfortable showing ourselves fully. Therefore, we don't accept us. And if we don't accept us, it's very hard that we're going to accept other people. And that creates separation between people. It creates miscommunication again, all of that.
How can leaders begin cultivating authenticity in themselves and in their teams?
I think the first step is really self-reflection. It is awareness, is looking inside and figuring out, where am I being authentic? Where am I not being authentic? Where am I trying to be something I'm not, or I'm hiding, or I am, and just really looking into that. Why is that, right? What am I afraid of? What I think is going to happen if I show this side? And again, I am not suggesting that people become like super emotional at work. It's different, right? I just want to say that because sometimes we talk about being authentic and then people feel like they're going to show up at work in, like, I don't know, shorts and be saying bro or whatever, right? It's not about that. It's about just showing your humanity, which sometimes we hold back. And again, I think it all starts with self-reflection, understanding, where am I holding back and why? Which part of me am I thinking it's not okay? And if I think that's not okay, do I want to change it, right? Is there something I want to do to improve that part, to change that part? And start accepting the reality of who we are so we can accept others too.
One of my favorite books is Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Bradbury. He talks about being self-aware and socially aware, but you can't be socially aware until you're self-aware. So I love your thoughts on this. What are some of the common challenges that leaders face when they're trying to be real at work?
Well, I think there's some fear involved, because if someone is used to live hiding something, or like under an armor, and they're willing to try something different, there is fear. Like, what's going to happen? Like, are people going to trust me? Am I still going to be respected? Right? I think those are some of the fears that people find. To your point on them, like right? You built on the self-awareness part. I think it can be helpful for people listening to share some ways that I believe people can cultivate the self-awareness, right? And one of the ways is through journaling, through reflection. Like, it could be some people like to journal in the end of the day to reflect on the day, right? What did I do today that I was proud of? What did I do today that didn't go as planned? And, what can I learn from that? What are my goals for tomorrow? What am I grateful for? All those things help us reflect on how we are living life. Another way to bring self awareness is through mindfulness meditation for people that are open to that, because we really bring our attention inward and we connect with ourselves in a different way. And it helps us really just stop and notice the moment, notice what's happening right now, because so often we are out there, right? We are just trying to be something, to do something, and then we were really not very much connected with ourselves, with what's important for us, how we are feeling in our body and what's our body trying to tell us. And I know I'm like adding a lot of different concepts here. So if you want me to go deeper in any of these, I'm happy to. But this idea of just connecting with ourselves through our body, through our breathing, also helps develop self awareness and get us in a place where we are noticing, right? Is this what I'm doing or what I'm saying aligned with who I am? Is it aligned with my values? Right? Is it aligned with what's important for me? And that's being authentic. It's living a life that is aligned for us.
Barbara, I can guarantee that when you started talking about journaling, that everybody who listens to my podcast laughed, because I am one of the biggest proponents of journaling. You've got to write down your thoughts, slow your thinking down. And the way you do that is to put them down on paper or a keyboard. If they are not journalers, what can they do to implement it into part of their regimen? And is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly?
So, what I'm going to say, I don't know that your audience is going to like it. But
I love it already. That's good. Bring it.
brush my teeth every morning, and that's not because I love brushing my teeth. It's just because that's what I do, right? I pack my kids' lunch every day. I'm not thinking if I like to pack their lunch or not. I just do it because that's what I do. We do what we do, not what we want to do. We do what we commit to do. So if someone listening here feels like journaling is something that is important for them, that is going to move the needle for them, then my encouragement is to let go of the question, do I want to do it? Am I good at it? Like, just forget all of that and commit, right? It's like going to the gym. Most people don't get super excited. I'm going to go to the gym today. They just go because they need to go. They know it's good for them. So they go. And, when we let our wants and motivations get in the way, then we become again a victim of that. We are not in an owner position, right? We are not using our power to decide what we're adults, right? Adults, we do what we have to do. We pay the bills. We go to work. We journal if we think that's important. Having said that, you don't have to journal. Right? There might be a different way for you to develop your own self-awareness. Maybe for you is going on a walk and then reflecting about the day without actually journaling. Maybe is having a conversation with a friend once a week about, your goals, your gratitude, your whatever. So you can find a different way to do it, whatever works for you. And once you find that, you commit to it. You don't let that decision comes depending on the day, if I feel like it or not. You make the decision and then you execute on it.
NFL legend Jerry Rice, in his book Go Long, as hey, I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. I love the commitment perspective. I hope everybody out there brushes their teeth at least once, if not 2 or 3 times a day. And you're right, we don't love to do these things, but we do them because we want to get better. So Barbara, what do you think makes coaching such a powerful tool in leadership development?
Coaching gives us an opportunity to reflect. And I think a lot of the time is about uh, identifying blind spots. as we grow up, we start making sense of the world, right? When we're babies, everything is possible. There's no good and bad, right or wrong. It's just what it is. And then we start making sense of the world. We start creating stories, rules, deciding what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. And that's based on, what's happening, like the people that are around us. And so I'll give you an example. I grew up in a home where it was a very loving home, my mom and my dad. And my father was someone who wasn't super open to debate. If he knew something was right in his head, he didn't want to discuss it. He wanted us, like me and my sisters, to just accept and follow his guidelines. And when I tried to discuss with him, the result was not very positive for me. So I learned from a very young age that discussion or debate equals disrespect. And that was a rule that I made for myself. And for a long time, I believed this was the truth about the world. Like the sun rises every day, you don't disagree with people, especially if it's a figure of authority in your life. And that was how I operated. And one day I was in a friend's house and something came up and the family started having this heated discussion about it. And everybody was like talking and I started getting nervous. I'm like, oh my God, where is this going to end? And then they finished the discussion, moved on, and everything was fine. And that's when I realized that, in other houses, if you don't engage in the discussion, that's what's disrespectful. So that's not a truth about the world. That was a truth in my house, but it's not a truth about the world. But I didn't know that. I wouldn't question that because it's just how I saw the world. And so I think coaching is really helpful in supporting us in seeing those stories, right? In seeing how we're making meaning of the world and if the way we're making meaning of the world is helping us or not. Because when it's not, we can always change that. We can always change our thoughts about a situation, even if we cannot change the situation, so that we have a different experience about it. So we feel empowered about it. So we can grow from it. And I think coaching is an excellent way of having a sounding board, someone that's going to be challenging your thoughts, your assumptions, your ways of being, so that you can have that understanding. Okay, this is not the reality, it's how I'm seeing reality. Do I want to continue seeing reality this way or not? Because if not, there's another option.
Barbara, how do you balance encouraging someone with challenging them?
See them as like opposites, at all. Because when people bring things up on coaching, usually it is, I'm seeing this is not working for me right now, but I just don't know how to change it. Right. And the process is to help them discover. I am not a mentor, right? I am not here to tell me, okay, I've been through that and this is the steps, do A, B, and C, and you're going to get where you want. The way that I work with clients is by asking them a lot of questions so they start noticing or questioning their thoughts, their assumptions, and finding for themselves what's the best way to go. So it's really empowering for them too. And they feel challenged because I will support them in questioning their assumptions. And they also feel empowered and excited because they come up with their own solutions.
A lot of my audience consists of aspiring leaders. Whether they're young, old, or in between, they're just getting into the leadership game. So, for those listeners, what advice would you give to someone trying to lead well in their current context?
First, I want to say one thing. Leadership is a process. It's not a destination, the way I see it. So there's no end game. We can all keep developing. So it doesn't matter where you are in the stage of your career, if you're just starting or not. And even it doesn't matter if you are a leader in the sense of like you're managing people. We are all leaders in our own life. We're all trying to influence people around us. And so I want to just establish that. And in terms of advice for people that are trying to improve their leadership skills, I think it's about listening a lot, like being open to what's going on around you, learning from others, learning from podcasts, learning from books, learning from all different things, but really taking the learnings and putting it in practice, right? often I see a lot of leaders and people in general that consume a million podcasts, consume a million things, but they don't put in practice. It just stays in the logical way, right? And if we don't put it in practice, then we have no way to learn and to develop. So, be open to what you're listening. Look out for what works for you, and then experiment with it. Like experiment bringing the different aspects and skills that you're learning about into your day to day. Don't stay just in the theory. And again, we're all going to make mistakes, right? I think sometimes when people are in a leadership role, they feel like they cannot make a mistake. We are all humans. In a sense, it's even helpful for other people around you to see that, you also make mistakes. The question is how you deal with them, right? Do you take ownership and do you go and find a solution, right? You want to always be moving forward. And I want to recommend a book that I think is an excellent book for leaders, and it's called The Collaborative Way. It's a really short book that talks about 5 different aspects that are important for. It's about company culture, but I think as a leader, you understanding all those different things, it can really help guide you. It's kind of like principles that can guide you through your leadership journey. It's a really quick and easy read, and it's very practical. So I like that one specifically.
Barbara, what is one mindset shift that you think every leader needs to make?
Well, that's a big question. I think I'm gonna stick to what I was saying before around becoming an owner in your life and what happens, right? You don't want to be that person that is blaming others, the department, the traffic for what's happening, right? As a leader, you want to look at the situation, see what you can control, see where you can influence, and then do that. And I think that's a great example to the team to show that there's always something we can do. There's always something we can learn from any situation. There's always an opportunity there. And so having this mindset that some people refer to it as above the line, right? Where you are open, you are curious, you are trying to learn from what's happening as opposed to judgmental, righteous, having a need to be right in the situations as opposed to learn from the situations.
Barbara, you gave us one book, but here's the question that I ask everybody. Do you have any other books or practices and or routines that you recommend for a leader who is trying to stay grounded?
Well, the self-reflection we talked about, I think that's very important. Another book that I really love, which has a lot to do with authenticity, is Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. That's a really good one. And actually, I'm gonna give a resource to your listeners. And I have in my website a page that's hidden just for special people that has my top 10 resources, which are like my top 5 books and my top 5 videos that people can find. And it's at BNow Consulting /top 10. So that's a great place for people to find other resources.
Is there anywhere else that my listeners can connect with you? Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc.
Yeah, sure. So I'm on LinkedIn and my handle is Bigel, and I'm on Instagram.consulting. And you can always email me if you want to talk more or to have any thoughts about this conversation. I would love to hear from you, Barbara@BNowConsulting.com.
On my podcast, we usually do Mo's final thoughts, but when I have a guest, I always give them the last word. Barbara, what are your final thoughts for today?
Well, since I think a lot of your listeners are newer leaders, right? My final thoughts are anything that we learn, we start from a place of not knowing how to do, right? We need to start as like not good at it until we get good at it. And that goes like if you want to learn how to play the piano, at first you have no idea how to do it, and then you'll practice and you'll get there. And that's true for leadership as well. It is a process. There are going to be things that go great, and then there are going to be setbacks. And what's going to differentiate you as a leader from everybody else is your ability to look at those moments when things don't go as well and take them as an opportunity to grow and learn and become a better version of yourself, right? Better than you were before. Sometimes we get in the trap of comparing ourselves to others, and we always lose because we're looking at what the other people have that we don't have. So we're always going to lose, and we don't know what it took them to get there, right? So just stay on your lane, do the best you can, know that you're doing your best, and setbacks will appear, and those are great. That's how we learn. Before you could walk, you fell a million times. So, and then you learn how to walk, and that's true for anything.
Well, Barbara, this has been Leadership Gold. And for my audience, if you found today a conversation valuable, make sure you're signed up for our newsletter, because each month we're going to send you practical leadership tips, insights from our guests, and resources to help you in your influence wherever you lead. Just head on over to www.rtclc.com and sign up. Barbara, thanks so much for coming on. I would love to have you on again in the future. Best of luck.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.